Now then folks, just as a little bit of a break from messing with the wife's car, going to do a quick bit of fault checking on this here Bosch sander, which has been dead from being taken off the rack behind me. So we assume it's an electrical fault because I've just pulled the switch and nothing happened. Taking all the screws out, just going to have a quick illustration of how I would go about doing a bit of fault finding with this thing. Start off with the easiest thing first. Is the fuse blown? Pull the fuse out of there. Get a continuity across it and that's fine, which is a bit of a shame because that would be the easiest thing to fix, obviously. Next test is to check each of the live and neutral cables. So as I say, we've taken all the screws out of here. Let's haul it apart. Put that down there. So start off, beg your pardon, start off with a live. This is fine, as is the neutral. So we've obviously unscrewed these from these two terminals. So problem is further forward than this area here. Here's a switch. As I say, I've already done a bit of dismantling on this, so this switch is pretty fucked now. Neutral terminal, live terminal, and then power comes off at these 2 points from the switch once you pull the trigger, after passing through what's in there, which is tiny sort of capacitor thing that's supposed to solve your peaks and troughs of voltage. So get the tester in here. Now check from here across to the brushes. Now doing there. Check from this end. Yes, we've got good connection there. Good connection, I believe, across the brushes. So problem is in the switch, which is a fairly common area for power tools to fail. So just pop these two connectors off, and if you don't mind not being able to put the switch back together again, it's very easy to take them apart. This one's just held together with little hooky catches all over the place. So I'll just get a look inside of this switch, which I do know to be knackered on account of having tested it. So here's where the switch actuates. Just got a little piece of copper in there. When you pull this, press the switch, makes a connection down in there. It connects across here, allows the circuit to pass through here, but to get there it has to come through this, which is a capacitor. And as you can hear, absolutely no continuity across there. Yeah, this is all ground in here. So what we do is, if you can be bothered, you get the numbers off of this thing, go online, buy a new one of these, fit it back into your old switch. It'll probably cost you about 10 quid to do that, and a small nervous breakdown trying to get this switch with all its little springs and just irritating awkwardness to try and fit back together somehow. I mean, it's going to involve putting a big hammer across it at some point. So what we do, get online, power tool spares, stick in the number of the bit of gear, in this case GSS 23AE sander, and lo and behold, from Bosch you get a new switch which costs a tenner and doesn't make you fall asleep crying in your beer at night, thinking about how you're ever going to get it back together again. So installing the switch is pretty straightforward. Get in here, remember how you took it apart, get everything connected up nicely, break off the little cable restrainer. As when you look a bit closer and find out that's a Torx. Nice and neat there. Nothing cheers you up as much as a manufacturer getting all their fasteners different types, but you know, could be worse, could be nailed together. Right, quick discussion on the tool. So electric comes in here through the switch. When the switch makes its contact, goes through the little capacitor there, comes up here, power comes into the brushes. This black wire here comes around to this speed controller doohickey, which is all potted in with a little I don't know, presumably a potentiometer, probably something even more complicated than that. We've absolutely reached the foggy area of my electrical knowledge over here. If I was a 15th century sailor, that's where I'd write "Here be dragons," and we just ignore all that part. So electricity comes in here, goes into the brushes, into the commutator, spins the armature against the stator, spins this little intake fan for cooling the motor, and also spins this intake fan here, which sucks air and dust and all sorts of crap, the 75-year-old lead-based paint off your stairs, up here, through this nozzle, hopefully into your vacuum cleaner, more likely into your lungs to kill you in 10 years time. Bearings top and bottom. As this spins around, you can see that it makes the plate on the bottom joggle about because it's on a little eccentric, which makes a little bits of glass smash against your bits of paint. Hey ho, no more paint. So the theory goes. It's going to brush back into its brush holder there. Right, pop that back on. Slightly fiddly because it's got all sorts of dust sealing and also this spring here for holding the sandy paper. Gets a little bit in the way. Alright, quick check. We've done that, at least in some small part, correctly. No, have we? Fuck. Ho hum. Well, doesn't that suck balls? And cut. Right, so we've had a good look at this and had a think, and what I reckon has happened is, get out there, that switch is fine, but this fella's fucked. Now this thing may or may not be expensive, I don't know, to replace, but I've personally never run a sander on anything but full speed because it gets all the stuff off what you want it to be off quicker. So I think what I'm going to do is have a quick check of this to see if this doohickey here is actually the cause of the problem, and if it is, then we might come up with a plan to make it less of a problem in the future. So obviously what's happening here is blue wire comes off of this thing, goes back into field winding here, gets everything spinning round. And this black wire, you can see the fact it actuates on the switch over there, is a direct contact through. So I reckon, with the plug very much out of the wall, that shoving a fairly heavy gauge wire between this brush connection here and this switch here, before donning my gloves of safety and fetching a safety stick. So I'll plug this into a switched off socket, get the safety stick ready. No, oh yeah, beg pardon. Excellent. Experiment successful. So we've now got to come up with a way to either repair that, get that off there, and that off there, or alternatively to just bypass it completely, connect these two wires together and solder them and call it good, and we just have ourselves a permanent turbo sander. Right, that'll do for the minute. It's Friday night, time for that. Okay, so it's the next day, and what we're going to do today is take this fella out of the equation. So I assume that what's gone wrong is something's failed in there. So I'm going to take a bit of a leap in the dark, cut the circuit board out, and then what we'll end up with is, let's get a little bit of free cable there. Ouch. So what I will do is, while I've got those two stripped, is put in a quick test there. So I'll short across the plug. To simulate a circuit. And if I hold that, try to avoid soldering my test leads. Also switch on the multimeter. And happy days, we get a circuit. Okay, so this suggests that this fix will work in some way, but you can see how small the bit's there, and you can also see the size of my hands. So I think what we're going to do is have a look at that in a minute. I think what we're going to do is pop the motor out should be relatively straightforward, I think. Start to get the brushes out. Just frankly mess about blindly for God knows how long. I mean, what I'm ending up with here, it's never going to be NASA's spec at any point, but what I might do is just do a pigtail splice there, just twist those two together. And solder it, slip on a bit of heat shrink tubing. And call it a good one. Yeah. As we're going to cowboy it a little bit. Okay, those two look pretty tight together. Bit of that. Bit of solder. Just wait for the iron to come up to some sort of temperature. This is the bit where I stop talking because I have to start thinking. Stick my tongue out. Okay, that's nice and blobby, isn't it? I would call that relatively solid. Give it a pull part test in a minute. You know, you definitely don't want to come here expecting professional quality, silky smooth manoeuvres. Oh, that smells lovely. Like the Colonel Kilgore of heat shrink. Okie doke. Well, it's not done well, but the fact I can do it at all is a shock and a joy to me. Okay, so what we'll do is see if this atrocious mess has actually succeeded in producing the effect I'm after, which is a functional sander. Okay. Switch jammed on. Plug socket is switched off. Hold it back here where the electricity isn't. Well, that goes round. Makes all sorts of horrible vibrating noises. Excellent. Right, let's get it all sewn back together. Get this out of the way because I know for a fact I'm going to stick my elbow on it at some point or give myself a lovely pyrographic tattoo. Okay. This is the part where I, despite a rapidly fatiguing brain that nature's not really gifted me with to start, I have to now go through, remember exactly what stuff I've messed about with, in what way, and make it so it's good again. That can stay in there, that hole's too small to bother with. Brushes, 2 offtakes there, these 2, which I suppose could sit in more neatly, but there we go, one goes in there, and looks like we're all good in this area. Get these back in.
screws back and make it look like I'm going super fast. Oh, yeah, so I get this. That's all back.
Right then, switches off, switch on the wall, see if this kills me. And nothing's even rattling about in there. Got a small hole there, but I'm not fussed about that. Maybe put a bit of tape over it to prevent too much dust and crap going in it. So here's the thing that's failed, and I'll be buggered if I know what it all does. But I do know that it doesn't work, so hurrah for me. Alright, there we go. Did not go as according to plan. Intention was to come in, do a very clever bit of fault finding, find the fault, fix the fault. That didn't work. Misidentified the fault as being the switch, though I do think this capacitor is knackered, but I've also checked out the price of that, and it's going to be about £20 to have that delivered to me. So I think what I'll have is instead a very fast sander. Right, thanks for watching. If you did,